Welcome home. We are WNST. Towson, Baltimore. Baltimore Positive. We're positively into a beautiful week, a homestand after getting our asses kicked in Houston over the weekend. But, man, my week got off to a great start. We're going to be at Pappas on Tuesday doing the Maryland Crab Cake Tour. Last Crab Cake Tour before the 4th of July. Coming back on the 12th at Fadley's before the Yankees get here that night. All of it brought to you by the Maryland Lottery. Our friends Gold Rush Sevens and the Doublers. We had $20 winners last week over at Coco's. And by the way, at Coco's, we had a crab cake emergency over the weekend. We had the heat and the AC went down over at Coco's, and Marcella gave a shout out on Saturday. 600 crab cakes, big as my head, wiped out, 11 ounces. A little bit more bigger than my head. I probably don't have 11 ounces up here over at Coco's, and they wiped her out. Big thanks to everybody that made that happen. Also, our friends at Liberty Pure Solutions, keeping our water crystal clear. We'll be learning more about that in our Oyster Tour later on in the year, as well as Jiffy Lube Multicare, getting us out on the road. I've been on the road to Ohio many times. Our dear friend John Martin from the Maryland Lottery, big old school, one-time Tribe, now Guardians fan. So we talked a lot of Cleveland baseball here. But, it's not often I get to reach to real experts and people in high places in Northern Ohio. This guy has hosted sports radio there longer than I've been doing it here. I'm in year 33 here. We are 26 years into WNST. We're 40 years into my crazy media career. Our friends at Curio Wellness and Foreign Daughter put us up to doing this 25th anniversary documentary. You can go check that out. Munch, my story has been told here in a way that only people like Bill Murray and Gina Shock can tell it. You are your own entity and legend in the land of Cleve. It is always good to welcome you back, but very rare that I welcome you back when the Cleveland baseball team has a 7-game lead middle of June in Major League Baseball. This is you're more starved than we are in Cleveland for baseball, really.
Well, there is no doubt. But you know what? Not just the 7 games, because it's still early. And I'm one of these guys that, okay, they're up 7. That's very, very cool. But something to me even more important, Nestor, is right today, and this is just unfathomable to many, is this team is what? Yeah, this team is 23 games over 500. That is just simply amazing. You do the old math, say, well, if they go 500 the rest of the way, they're going to be in. But they just continue to win. They find ways to win. They've got each other's backs. They've every game, in addition to your Ramirez and Kwan and Naylor, there's another hero. It's amazing because the starting pitching has not been good, except for just, Lively has been getting people out with his 88, 89 mile an hour fastball. You've got Logan Allen, who likes to serve up home runs, but still is winning games. And you're going to see our ace during the series, Mr. Tanner Bybee. So it's going to be a lot of fun.
Earlier in the year, John Martin from the Lottery Zone, we're talking about Bieber and, maybe Cleveland trading, and maybe he would be an Oriole. Dude, we've lost Bradish. We've
Right.
lost Wells. We've lost Means again. We lost Batiste at the end of last year. And that, they win a lot of games here. And we're always, after you get your ass kicked in October, and you guys are familiar with that, that's happened. You examine this and say, how are we going to be better? They go out and get Burns. And Burns has been fine. Rodriguez has been very good. This is the best version of the Orioles, Munch, that I have ever seen. Now, I go back to Gritch and Baylor and Coggins and Bunbury, 72, 73, 74. I have a little category on the new website at Baltimore Positive we're going to call Remember That Time. And it
Oh,
really
very
is for
cool.
young old timers in the parlance of a John Stedman, or in your case, a Pete Franklin, or Charlie Ekman in my case. How young of an old timer are you? Like, when did you get on radio first? And then what's your first Cleveland baseball, Colavito? Where did you come onto the train in Cleveland baseball? Because we suffered here, right? Luke was born the week that the Orioles won the World Series in '83. That's how long it's been. That Luke was born that week and hasn't experienced it. Nobody here has experienced it on the baseball side. We can get into the football, the Browns, the Modell, and do all that. But just on the baseball side of things, as bad as we feel, it's worse for you, but it feels like at least you've had some fun the last 30 years.
Well, you know what? Have had some fun, but there's been a lot of suffering. Think about this. And I actually, it was going up to the delicatessen to get some baseball cards as a young kid and ripping them open, hoping to get a couple of Indians in that pack. I do remember Rocky Colavito's 4 home run game against your very own Baltimore Orioles, sitting in the basement with my dad. The man cave at that time was 2 lounge chairs put in the basement because we didn't have air conditioning. It was nice and cold, and he would
Just
carry
think
the
Archie Bunker and Edith's chair in front of a
yes,
television. That was life in the 60s and 70s in this
right,
country, right?
and carry the TV downstairs and put tinfoil on the antenna so we can watch the games. But it's funny because you think about it, you saying have a lot of fun. Well, I've had fun since the move to Jacobs Field at the time, now Progressive Field. But you think about it, okay? 60s, 70s, 80s, first couple of years of 90s, there was nothing but losing. And I remember walking back hand in hand with my dad, the ex-Marine and factory worker, tool and die maker, saying, "Dad, I love going to the games. I appreciate it, but what would it be like if they won?" And but that was it. That was your team. That's what you got along with.
What's
But you
your
know what
first
else?
memory? Who was the first team you saw? What year, Munch?
Do you know what? The first game I saw had to be around 60, 61. My dad played AAA ball. And you know how everybody hates the Yankees? I don't hate them. I have a respect for them because my dad used to take me to see the different pitchers that they had, to see Whitey Ford, to see the flamethrower Ryan Duran. And I remember seeing, Mantle. I remember seeing Berra. You ready for this? Coach first base, trot down. He was a player coach. Ralph Houk called him a pinch hit, and pinch hits a home run. And my dad just looked at me and said, "That's what greatness is." So I do
You
remember
never
those good
forget that.
times.
I saw Frank Robinson as the Cleveland manager in 74, 75. Now, he was gone from here before when he played with my cousin and all that. But
Hmm.
I saw Hank Aaron play on a twilight doubleheader as a Milwaukee Brewer in 1976 in here at Memorial Stadium. Like, you don't forget those things. And when the Phillies came in here last week, Munch, I had my Pentax camera in '83, so I have pictures of the Oriole a bird and the Philly fanatic out at second base, Memorial Stadium. Like, I have those memories that. At 55, I've been waiting 30 years. We got a new owner, of the whole history with Angelos and all of that. And the new people have treated me worse than Angelos, to be really honest with you. But
What?
believe me, my eruption's coming. My Krakatoa is coming. But in the case of Cleveland, for you, in all sincerity, I go back to Len Barker and Charbonneau and like all of that. Thornton, uh, so the modern era for you, what is the brand of the Guardians? Much like the DC football team and other teams that had trademarks that were disputed at the very least, if not offensive in some cases.
Hmm.
How is that for a guy your age? You're wearing a guard shirt. You're down. I mean, you were the first one to sort of say, "Look, man, we can put this down and change our name." But the whole image, because I used the I word by accident or the T word because it was a sort of fun, and major league and like that's and I love your town and I love the history and
Yes, you
the
do.
red jerseys and like the blue jersey, like all of that, right? And even when John Martin comes on and speaks of the pain of 95 and 90s, I was in the locker room in Cleveland, right? Like I remember it all. I feel for the fans, all of us who were fighting the Yankees and the Dodgers and the big money of baseball, to say when you're in first place in June, don't urinate on that. That for old guys like you and me, it's this rarefied air. This is a Christmas gift.
I'm going to take one step back, then I'm going to get into what you're hitting me with here. Is that my very first sportscast ever, and this is actually formally, was August 15th, 1979. And I was the new guy. So the morning show host said to me, "Okay, so you're giving me a little preview on the Ohio State offensive line, and we're talking this and that, and we're talking a little bit of Indians and Reds because it was in Columbus." He goes, "But I'm going to hit you with the toughest one yet, just to see if you're up to the past the muster. Who plays in the World Series and who wins?" And I looked at him, I said, "Well, that's the easiest question you've hit me with. It's going to be the Pirates and the Orioles, and the Pirates are going to win a World Series." So I apologize to you and all the great people in Baltimore, which I do love your city too. So it goes back to that. Now, I will
Well,
hit
Burt
you with this.
Blyleven never apologized to me. Grant Jackson never. None of these guys I knew over the years. I had Dave Parker on a couple of years ago, and he's in some
Uh,
failing health as well. None of those guys, those bums, any of them, and certainly not Omar Moreno or his wife. And you know what? Every time we hear "We Are Family" here, it's almost like Sister Sledge is banned in the state of Maryland, and certainly in
I
Baltimore.
could imagine. I could imagine.
Not
You know
that
what
I'm
though?
scarred by it 45 years later or anything, you know.
You should be. And even with your Baltimore Orioles, I remember like yesterday, and again, being a baseball card collector and being a sports guy, people say, Munch, where did you get your formal training? Well, the summer of first to second grade, my dad, before he would take off for the plant, would always leave the box scores open for me in the morning paper. He'd come home from work. I say, Dad, do you know what Zoya Visalis did today? Or do you know what Nellie Fox did? Or do you know what Luis Aparicio? By the way, Luis and Nelly were my favorite Keystone combo of all times. I used to make my dad take me to see him
Well,
with
I
the White
guaranteed
Sox.
you reading the box scores in 60, 61, 62. First question would be, did Aparicio steal a base last night? And chances are he did.
And you love see, you're the same way as me. Look at those little things. But and I remember the 420 game winners that you had like yesterday. And you know what, man? Loving baseball and really being a fan of your city is that not as bad as you. But I always kind of glance towards the Baltimore Orioles to see what they're doing too. And for quite a while, it's like, well, haven't been doing a dang thing. And of course, we had the great playoffs with you guys in our cities. And I remember guys laying down bunts and running the wheel play on down the line. It's been a lot of fun. But I look at your squad today, and I look at our squad today, and you mentioned about the Guardians. Well, there's still always going to be some folks that are like, well, you know what? No, they're not the Guardians, they're the Indians. They don't care. I mean, you go to the games, there's probably, if people are wearing gear, I'd say overwhelming majority are now wearing Guardians gear. And the new hip thing is their City Connect jerseys with the CLE, and you've got the Guardian statue holding a bat. You're seeing a lot of those around. But, going back to my dad, and my dad was one of these guys, like I said, he was a Marine, he was a plant worker, and he told me from day one when I started following the team, he goes, and he showed me a pennant for the 48 World Series that had just a bold, proud Indian chief on it with the headdress and just like a good, serious look on his face. He goes, this should be the logo. He goes, Chief Wahoo is stupid. I don't like it. And, that was for years. So I'm going to be blunt. I did not like Chief Wahoo either. I had no problem, though, with the name Indians. To me, it was not a demeaning name, but if they need to change it, then so be it. I can go with change, okay? As long as it's just not flat out stupid. And you have some folks that were being preemptive, and you have some folks that write checks for the team that say, you know what, maybe you should think about changing the name. There are still people in an uproar. If that's the case, they need to get a life, okay? And there's still people that have won over because they're winning. And there's people that have been won over because they keep working on the logo and keep working on merchandise. But right now, for the most part, a team 23 under or 23 over, not 23 under, anybody complaining because of the name, well, you know what? They can go somewhere else. They could move to the state up north if they'd like to, because the bottom line is they're just not happening in any way, shape, or form. People are embracing this team in a big way because you know what? This team, who's the superstar of this team? It's Jose Ramirez. Stephen Kwan may be knocking at the door. Naylor's a very, very good player. As I mentioned, every day somebody else steps up and they're a lot of fun and they play for each other. They go, the old 90-foot mantra, but when they're on first base, they're not thinking 90 feet. They're thinking, I'm not going to second, I'm going to third, or maybe even I'm scoring. At times a little reckless because they have been putting runs on the board, but you're going to love them. They're fun to watch. And, I love watching your team too. So to me, this is going to be one of the most fun series of the year in baseball.
Munch Bishop is here from the land of Cleve. He's been my friend for going on 3-4 decades now. He has done sports radio in the Cleveland area since 1979, as he has documented. I went on the air December 13th, 1991. So you got 12 years on me.
I do
And
age-wise too, by the way.
well, that's okay. I've had a great week here. I've had Greg Hawks from the Cars on there. He's doing a little.
Really?
Yeah, I know you're an old school music guy, and
Well,
I
did you
had
know?
Thomas Dolby, Hootie and the Blowfish. It's been a really good summer here. In addition to just doing sports, that we're having fun eating crab cakes and doing our thing. And I guess out in Cleveland for you, you're still doing what you've always done and what you've loved to do, which is talk about the local teams. I mean, that's been your life, much like my life here.
Hey, I got to jump in on something real quick. You know, two of the cars are Cleveland guys. Rick Ocasek, of course, the front man, Maple Heights High School, and the late great Benny Orr, Valley Forge High School, one of the Parma schools. And I'm a huge crab crate guy too, so I know that we don't need anything to not pander in any way, shape, or form.
No,
But
you're
you got me,
Cleveland, dude. You're the home of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. How am I going to argue
No,
cars with
you
you?
can't. You
Greg
can't. With
Hawkes
just,
is from here, by the way, and Ocasek
oh,
is
okay.
here, and then he downgraded to Cleveland. And he moved out there, but we claim Ocasek around here as well. For you with
Whoa,
this
whoa,
particular
whoa, whoa.
what?
Okay, go. But I'm glad you talk rock and roll too, and I don't know you won't mind mentioning the game. I've had program directors before who definitely are a thorn in most people's side. I joke that I have more fingers than I've had good program directors in 44, going on 45 years. I only have 7 fingers. You know that. But the bottom line is I've had guys before, you didn't talk sports in that segment. You talk about this band, this and that. I've heard Dan Patrick go on for a segment about Tom Petty during the day when Tom was still with us. So you know what? Rock and roll and sports, they go hand in hand. And I think you
Always
know
have
this.
rock and jock. You've known
Yeah.
that, you know.
Years
I
ago,
was
I've service marked the term sports rockers. That's what I called my listeners.
All right, well there you go. So for you with the Cleveland experience now and what the Guardians represent, where the state, what the state of the stadium, and where the Browns are, and what the Cavaliers have done, and what Ohio State, where's Cleveland baseball right now? And I mention this because Tito Francona was the star of the franchise, right? You have a manager that's a star, and the last time we won here, Joe Altobelli was the manager. It was the year after Earl Weaver left, right?
Whoa.
So in '83, and Earl Weaver was in the booth with Howard Cosell, being hazed by Cosell in the 7th inning about Earl not win. Hey, Earl, how's it feel to watch this the year after you left? I mean, Earl lost his mind. So, and we've watched that many times on the bus trips on the way out to Cleveland over the course of time, putting old videos on, because that's all we got is Game
Hmm.
5. October 16th, 1983 is the last time it happened here. We've had hell here with Angelos. We have this like resurgence in a way that I saw it in Cleveland when the Jake was built in 90, because I went there before the Jake, and then I went there when the Jake was built. And in that
Hmm.
2 or 3 year period, 93, 94, 95, 96, not only the Browns, Ravens, Modell, and all that, both the baseball franchises. And I see the Guardians. I'll make sure I use the right word here. The Guardians, because I
Okay.
always want to use the wrong word. I see the Guardians like 30 years later, really sort of living and eating in the modern era. That Oral Hershiser, Eddie Murray, Ramirez, Lofton, Baerga, that experience launched modern Cleveland baseball. And sort of when Ripken was going out here in 21-30, it sort of ended the Boog Powell, Brooks, Frank, all of that went away for 20 years here. You guys have been in World Series. You're competitive. Tito was a part of this. Tito leaves.
Three World Series, by the way, since the change over to the ballpark.
Three, okay,
Yes.
right? And game sevens and real chance to win. And LeBron has happened there in the same way that Ray Lewis happened here and the Ravens won here. We know what it tastes like to have a parade. But on the baseball side, baseball, not in your town, because Cleveland, still football was the original in the Garden of Eden there. But baseball
For some unknown
here,
reason, for some unexplainable reason. Go ahead.
yeah, but baseball in Cleveland's never fully blossomed because you haven't won in the modern era. But I
Hmm.
always see it as sort of underserviced in some way because they've never really spent money. And I think that when I put Luke on to talk about Cleveland, he's like, well, they never really spend money there. And I guess the fans here are wondering with Rubenstein, all right, are we going to sign Henderson? Are we going to sign? Are we going to give him $300 million? What happens to Burns at the end of the year? And Cleveland's been one of those places where even in the early days with Lofton and those guys, they signed those guys early to kind of lock them up. Cleveland hasn't been a long-term place. You go make your money with the Mets or somewhere else if you're, if you're Frankie, right?
Well, you know what? Jose Ramirez, he's definitely locked up here for a while. Here's what's interesting, Nestor, and it drives me crazy when people mention the money thing. Flashback during the Tito era until this year. Now, this year's far from over, don't get me wrong, but all this team does is win. And I know it's simplified, and don't get me wrong, I was pushing for them real hard to sign JD Martinez to be the DH this year, and he definitely would have helped this team. They were a little snake pit last year when they grabbed Josh Bell, paid him big money, so they spent money. Mike Zunino paid him big money, they spent money, and they just went south in a hurry. But the bottom line is, I even have people say to me here, well, you know what? Don't like Haslam, don't like Watson, but they spend money. And I go, so wait a minute, but they lose. Okay, last year they won, but they lose consistently, and all the Guardians before them, the Indians do, is win. And this is as moronic as you can
94
get.
wins in 16, 102 wins in 17,
Thank you.
91 wins in 18, 93 wins in
Keep going.
19, 20 doesn't matter, 21 tough, 80, 82, that was sort of the weird year, just getting reopened, 92 wins in 22. I mean, like I look at it and think like you should have 31,000 in the butt. And I'm old school, and I know it doesn't appeal to people of color. It's certainly with the $15 beers and with all of that and sort of where we are with the media thing. Look, Munch, the stench of the ownership that we have had here over 30 years. I mean, it got rid of Ripken for 20 years here, right? Like he didn't want to be a part of it. Brooks died barely being a part of it, right? So like this new thing we have going here, Cleveland's had a thing going, and when I see it, it feels like it's still the number 3 brand in your market in some way, even when they win.
Yeah, you know what? No, I will say this, and I'm going to salute the folks in a big, big way. You had 100,000 people, and the attendance, there's about 30, pushing 37,000 now in this ballpark. So you had over 100,000 people this last weekend for the Blue Jays. You had sellouts Friday and Saturday. You had rain yesterday, and you still had close to 27,000. Earlier in the week, you averaged in the mid 20s against for a Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday series. That was a lot of fun. So the people are responding in a big, big way. You know what does that? Winning does that. I mean, before the Blue Jays, the Mariners are in pretty good team, but I'm curious how good they really are when you see their lineup with 2 guys hitting over 220 or 250. But the bottom line is that people are responding to winning. They're responding to the type of guys on this team. They're responding to, and I call it Guardians baseball. Guess what that is? That is running out hits. They get an infield, something to be aware of in this series coming up. They get at least an infield hit every game because of hustle. They get avoid double plays because of hustle. Stealing, they steal a little too much because they get caught a little too much. But I guess the more you steal, the more you're going to get caught. But people are responding to this team. You might say, finally, winning cures all ills.
Our biggest problem here, Munch Bishop joining us here from Cleveland. Our biggest problem is the bullpen right now, and then the starting rotation, really the last 2 weeks, losing all these pitchers to Tommy John surgery. I could do an hour on the epidemic you and I remember watching Tommy John pitch. Now everybody's Tommy John, 15, 16-year-old kids.
Watch the pitch.
Yeah, it's crazy. The bullpen that they've amassed there and the obvious deficiencies in the starting rotation that Cleveland has.
Yeah.
And what we're trying to look, we're always trying to build the perfect team here. We have an offensive machine here. They can't even get Holiday to the big leagues. They just brought Kerstad back. They have all of these first round draft picks that are performing. They have rookie of the year candidates, like all of that. But the injuries to the pitching have depleted the pitching. And we saw the Yankees last week. We saw the Astros do a little bit of shoving over the weekend at them. You get a really good team there in Cleveland, and the bullpen is something that I think we're going to see the next couple of days, that if you get behind, big problems come 6th, 7th, 8th inning against the Cleveland Guardians.
Yeah, you know what? Even sometimes in the 15, the bullpen's been magnificent. And here's what's crazy. You do your homework, or you don't do homework, you just watch the game on a daily basis, is that Shane Bieber comes out. I know it's just 2 outings, but going, son of a gun. You know how you look for things? I go, this is the Cy Young Shane Bieber. Well, after 2 outings, he's gone. Tristan McKenzie has been just, not pitching good, but he's been a warrior. He needs surgery. He needs to be out for a year. He's still in a rotation, mainly.
Radish had a no-hitter 2 weeks ago, and then he's got Tommy John surgery.
Yeah, is that insane? I mean, so you're going through the same thing. I mean, Carlos Carrasco was signed to do eat up some innings in the middle relief. He is been a starter, but I'll say this: Bybee, Logan, and Ben Lively. I mentioned names. They have been very, very, very good, and they're waiting for Gavin Williams to come back. He's rehabbing now. He throws, but the bullpen is a lot of fun. Some of the guys I shudder a little bit when they come in. Just names, remember Tim Herron and the veteran Scott Barlow. They're a coin flip lately, but my golly, Hunter Gaddis has been moved to the pen. He has been lights out, and you're gonna love him. He's a rock star in Cleveland. Emmanuel Clase, oh come Emmanuel. He is just special. They have the cameras on him when he's walking down the stairs to come out of the bullpen, comes out on the crowd, and then the crowd just goes insane. It's like Mick and the boys taking the stage.
Well, they took the stage as well. I saw Mick a
Mm-hmm.
few weeks ago. Munch Bishop mixing some rock and roll in here. Before I let you go, and we do we little baseball talk, and we don't do a lot of NBA here, and I'm asleep on all that at this point. The football thing, I'm not asleep on. I'm just taking a little siesta, little June, little July siesta. Bring me up to speed on the Woof Woof Brownies and where they sit in the cosmos for you in the quarterback who had some criminal allegations. The franchise has always sort of been dusting off the last 5 or 6 years. I like the coach. Sometimes I like the players. Sometimes you like the direction. And then they come out and play, and the Ravens are always the better franchise. And I believe me, I have my own issues with the Ravens at this point. But to give me a nickel to bet on or against the Browns, I have to bet against them. And probably because
I do too.
I don't believe in the quarterback. I don't believe in that kid.
Well, you know what? Number one, you asked me where they fit in my cosmos, near the bottom, which is a damn shame. And I'm going to be blunt. I know that on your show that again, I'm saying it's not Nestor, but they have two owners actually, Jimmy and Dee, who pretty much embarrass the city every time they open their mouths. They have owners that have tried to shove Johnny Manziel on us. Now, of course, Deshaun Watson, as I call him, as a quarterback in the team. Nestor, I've talked to some NFL people. I'm talking GMs and player personnel. They were laughing so much. Just off to the side, we've got over under on games played by on Deshaun at 6, and most of us are taking under on that one this season. There are some likable guys. I wish I could root for them, and I did cheer for them last year. I didn't watch 1 second while Deshaun was still quarterback. As soon as Flacco came on board, I was watching the games again, listening to them intently. But the bottom line is that they've got some likable guys, which makes it a damn shame. Teller, Batonio, good dudes. Amari Cooper, I just love watching that guy play. Nick Chubb, when he comes back, how could you not like him? Myles Garrett is a good man. Denzel Ward, my Buckeye brother. But for the rest of it, it's like, you know what? I'm tired of guys telling us how great they are, than getting picked apart by a rookie quarterback. My Buckeye brother, C.J. Stroud, last year. You know what? Knock off the nonsense and just play. I haven't heard one Guardian say this year how good they are or how they're doing in their 23 over. You have guys getting jobbed on the Cleveland Browns, and they're telling us how great they are. Nah, you got to finally walk the walk.
Well, it is the season's close, and around here, Ravens rev it up against the Chiefs to open the whole season, kick the whole thing off on the road. A couple things, Munch. On the rock and roll side, I do have to point out that I did sit with Eric Singer of Kiss at
Yes.
Game 5 of the 1995 World Series. His
Oh,
seats were
whoa.
in the upper deck. Kevin Eck and I were there. It was the night before Art moved the team. Like literally, the next
Ugh.
morning was the morning the tarmac happened, and I was in Cleveland. I stayed out in Parma, right out there by the Ford plant. And
Mhm.
Eric Singer, it was how cold it was in '95 World Series. It was 30 degrees. Everybody had blankets, and
Well, it
Eric
snowed in
Singer's
'97.
right. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
this was cold. So, but I did sit there with Eric Singer. So there's my rock and roll, Cleveland rock and roll royalty. You tried to drop the cars on me there, and I never met Michael Stanley, and I feel like a you know, I'm not proud of that because I know he was a real icon there. Okay, couple things.
Yes,
I'm
sir.
old school enough to have come to Cleveland many moons ago. First time I ever came, Ernie Accorsi, I was his guest for
Oh,
the Elway game. You don't want to talk about that, the drive game. I did go back a couple of different times with the Oilers
thanks
playing
for that.
playoff games and whatnot. I remember Strock around the clock. Do you remember Strock around the clock? when Don Strock came up as like and he was our first offensive coordinator, right? In Baltimore
Right.
as a Raven. So give me there was the dogs and Minifield, Dixon, and all that, and then there was Strock around the clock. You had LeBron. You had a lot of sensations. Give me where the Flacco thing fits in Cleveland lore with Sipe and all of the other Bernie. The Flacco thing from the outside, and Joe came on and did an hour with me, a couple weeks after it was over with.
Mm.
Dude, you had people in Baltimore rooting for the Browns. Like the Flacco thing is sort of an all-timer, like almost like a movie in the 6 weeks it lasted.
Joe Flacco was amazing. The receiver said he was amazing. The lineman even said, you know what? They say Flacco can't move. Then how are we protecting him? How are we going to keep him upright? Threw a few too many picks. And the bottom line is people try to blame the Houston Texans game on him. Well, you know what? When your defense puts you in a 3-touchdown hole, what do you have to do? You have to come out slinging the ball. I know he gets charged for a pick, but one of the pick six, he was hammered as he threw the ball, floated up, and was picked away. This was a fairy tale. This was a real life, just special, rainbows all over the sky over Cleveland Brown Stadium. Flacco not only was a very good quarterback for the team, he was a very, very good man. Not a single mention about him playing for the Ravens when he was here. We do remember him beating the team with the Jets the year before, leading game-winning drives, but it was just amazing. Amari Cooper, who I mentioned.
It's hard to convince people here of this, and this comes across as anti-Lamar, but it's not. He did things Lamar is still dreaming about doing.
As a quarterback for you.
Several times. It wasn't
Yes.
luck. It wasn't, Nick Foles, I'm going to take over the Eagles for 6 weeks and win some games. What Joe did here, and I wrote a book about this 12 years ago now, I am just glad that he had, and look, he's wearing a Colts helmet now. So, there's that cuts here a little bit,
Well, let me hit you with this too.
But he was a special guy.
This is
and
very
I want people, and I'm glad that the resurrection of Joe Flacco in Cleveland shined a light on, I don't say his humanity, but his decency as a person.
Thank you. Thank you for that. And I've got to hit you with this too. And this is just going to grate you. And I love sharing this on your show, is that there is no doubt the Browns fully intended to bring him back. I know that Kevin Stefanski and Ken Dorsey, they made like a quick jaunt out to the LA area under the guise of checking on the progress of Deshaun Watson and his, progress there from his surgery. Well, they really went out there to put out a fire because Watson said he did not want Flacco on this team. Look there go the dogs barking for you now. He didn't want Flacco on this team because as soon as he threw a pick or did something stupid, people would be clamoring for him. And he knew that Flacco was more important and more liked than him. Mainly, too, not only was he a good quarterback, because he was a decent man. So hence why Joe Flacco is no longer wearing an orange helmet. You can thank Deshaun for that.
Well, we'll see how that turns out this week. Joe's 41, 42. I don't know how the old Joe is. Joe's timeless, ageless, as is Munch Bishop in Cleveland. Munch, tell everybody how to find you and what you do. You're Munch on Sports everywhere around the world, but tell them how to find you out on the interwebs and listen in, find you, and get in the react part of post-game for the Guardians this week out in Land of Cleve.
Thank you, my friend. You can get me on X at Munch Cleveland. Facebook is Munch Bishop. I do write sometimes daily columns for NEO Sports Insiders. It's at NEO Sports Insiders, and also appear on WHBC News Talk 1480. So having a lot of fun and just enjoying the summer and heading off on a little vacation at the end of this week, but I'm never that far from my homeland.
Listen, your team's pretty good this year, and whether it goes 3 games up or down this week, we got Texas coming into this weekend. Joan Jett's our squirter on Friday. She's playing with Alanis Morissette. We got my hometown festival, the Heritage Fair, is in this weekend. I had Greg Hawkes from the Cars on. That's happening on the air this week. So we got Like Hootie and the Blowfish is playing up in Hershey. I had Mark Bryan from Hootie on last week. So like a lot of rock and roll, a lot of baseball happening. But this is my pledge to you, and you know this because of how much fun I've had. And I almost came to Cleveland for the eclipse, and I didn't, and I should have because
You
it
could have
looked
been in my
beautiful.
backyard with us. We were in the best viewing area, our little city west of Cleveland, Avon Lake. It was like the best totality path to
Did
view
you have
the
a
eclipse.
magical experience? Was it incredible?
Yeah, you know what? I was one of these guys saying, okay, great. There's 50,000 people coming to Northeast Ohio. Actually, there was a few 100,000. Why would they do this? Bro, as it was happening, I was blown away. It was magical, it was mystical, and it was just worth every second to still be breathing on this planet to view that. That's how amazing it was. And I was one of these guys that was shoulder shrugging before it happened.
Well, my wife went up to northern New Hampshire, the Canadian border, and
Mhm.
saw it. And where I was, I was here with the cat. I wanted to do it. It didn't. I had a lot of work. It was one of those days. And then everybody that saw it, including my friends Bernard in Cleveland and other people that are out there, they all invited me. I could have gone to Tremont to my favorite breakfast place on earth and had breakfast that
What is your
morning. But
favorite breakfast place? Grumpy's?
if I give it away, everybody will shh, don't tell anybody. I mean,
Okay.
I'll tell you when the show's over. Munch Bishop is in
Did I give it up?
Cleveland.
Uh-oh.
No, no, Munch Bishop is out in the land of Cleve, and I hope to get out there. I was just going to say, heart to heart, for people like you that have suffered, if the I keep want to say the T
Go
word.
ahead.
If the Guardians win the World Series, I'm going to feel the best for people like you that have been suffering because I did that with the Cubs, I did that with the Red Sox. I certainly did that with you with LeBron when you finally won. I called
Hmm.
it, I did all of that stuff. It's fun for long-suffering fans to win, and I want us to win too. I want every Luke Jones and every my kid, anybody that was born too late to see 83 and Scott McGregor and Cal Ripken and Rick Dempsey. But you're next in line, I would say. So good luck to you guys, and we'll see you at the end of the week.
We'll definitely swap domiciles here when the Orioles and the Guardians play for the AL championship. Take care, buddy.
I got to get out to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame soon enough. At some point, they'll put sticks in. When they put sticks in, is when I'm coming. He is Munch Bishop. He is out in the land of Cleve. They have rock and roll out there, and a pretty good baseball team we're going to see here in Baltimore all week long. Luke's at the ballpark covering it all. We're talking baseball each and every morning here at Baltimore Positive, and what a week! Rock and Roll Hall of Famers, rock and roll royalty, crab cakes at Pappas and Parkville on Tuesday. All of it brought to you by our friends at the Maryland Lottery. I'll have the Gold Rush Sevens doublers, as well as our friends at Liberty Pure Solutions and Jiffy Lube Multi-Care. I am Nestor. We are WNST, AM 1570, Towson, Baltimore. And we never stop talking Baltimore positive.